we don't know how these teams are going to draft, but what we can do is we can kind of look at recent history. We're going to look at the history of each draft pick through the first 3 rounds that the 49ers have. I believe it's 31, 63, and 94. And we're going to look at the players picked at those spots and see if there's any hope for getting good players here in this upcoming draft, guys that can contribute right away at the very least. So hopefully everybody can see this. So at pick 31, these are the players that have been selected in the Shanahan era. Obviously, the 49ers had one of these picks. We remember Reuben Foster. That didn't go well. Sony Michel was a nice player for the Patriots, won a Super Bowl. We just talked about that a little bit earlier, how he was the running back on one of the Super Bowl teams. So he was a good player for the Patriots, but recently retired, I believe, as well. Was never special, but a good player. Caleb McGarry, I think, is probably the best player on this list as far as production goes. Very good offensive lineman for the Falcons. Not elite by any means, but beyond a serviceable.
I mean, he's solid enough.
He's solid. Okay, there we go. He's better than Colton McKivitz, would you say? I would say he's better than Colton McKivitz.
Yeah. I mean, the name that obviously is going to stand out for me is my boy Reuben Foster. That was probably the Niners' best pick at number 31 in recent history.
Yeah, great. Nice. But what else stands out to you on this list? Any surprises? Just anything that you're looking at saying, okay, this is a trend I'm seeing. What do you think about the overall players at draft pick 31 in the last 7 years or so?
Yeah. I think you see a bit of a trend, as the years go along. You look at Sony Michel. Your teams rarely now draft a running back in the first round. You don't expect the Niners or a team in general to probably draft one in this class with a weaker running back class. Caleb McGarry was an offensive tackle. Usually that's kind of in a stronger offensive tackle range. That could be similar to the 2024 class where there's a significant amount of offensive tackle talent. But then after that, defense. There's 4 defensive players, 2 defensive ends, and 2 secondary players, So if you're looking, those are kind of the positions where you might expect specifically in this draft for the Niners to go, because defensive end, if someone falls at 31, the Niners are a team who usually like to take those type of players. You could consider that. Secondary, that's going to be a big need in 2025. You're probably losing at least 1, maybe even 2 of the top 3 players that are going to be free agents. And then, you can consider offensive tackle as well, where the Niners also might look to consider that position given how deep it is in the first round of this class as well.
Yeah, looking at the talent here, a little bit disappointing, right? Because we're looking at 31 like, yeah, we finally got a first round pick back. It's like, oh, but it's pick 31, at least recent history. I mean, you can get some guys, right? Caleb McGarry, I do think, is the best player on this board.
Yeah.
I think he's an above average offensive lineman. He's not special by any means, but he's a good player. And if the 49ers got a Caleb McGarry type of player, I wouldn't be that mad at it. Actually, I think he would be just fine. Gladney has been a starter for the Vikings. Not special by any means, but he has been starting in this league. Adafi Owe, he's a guy who's been a spot starter. Decent sacks for the Baltimore Ravens in spot duty. Dax Hill, starter for Cincinnati this year. Decent, but it's still early. And then Anadike Uzama really didn't play much at all for the Chiefs this last year. So if you're looking for a guy to be an immediate impact, the only guy that really stands out on here is McGarry. And the nice thing is he's an offensive lineman, and the 49ers could definitely use an offensive lineman. So if that trend continues, maybe that's the route that the 49ers would want to go.
Yeah, and I think if you get, like you said, if you get a McGarry type player, you're going to be pretty happy if that's the guy or that type of guy that you come out of in this draft. I know a lot of people didn't like Mike McGlinchey. I'd consider him an average offensive tackle. But if you get in somewhere in the average to above average range and a guy who's a little more consistent, that's good enough to where you can have that one position solidified for 5 years, especially in this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if I looked at pick 32 and 30, like guys around that area, I'm sure that there's some good players that we could pull from there. But specifically at pick 31, last 7 years, hasn't been great. This is what I found interesting, though. We get to pick 63. some really good players at pick 63. I would almost take this crop of players at pick 63 over the guys at 31. I mean, what do you think? Do you agree with that?
I mean, I think you would definitely consider it. And there's one team that consistently just is on the page, which is the Chiefs.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They've hit on these picks. They're good players.
Yeah. But I mean,
But
literally like
Dion,
80% of these players are good.
that's what I'm saying. Dion Dawkins, hell of a player, right? Carlton Davis just got traded. He's looking to be the number one over with Detroit. Thornhill, Gay, they're good players. Creed Humphrey, absolute dog in this league. James Cook started to come on very strong for the Buffalo Bills this last year. Marvin Mims, maybe not so much, but the rest of them, and it's still only 1 year in for Mims, but the rest of this is pretty good. This is actually really encouraging. I was shocked. I had to like double check, like, am I looking? Is this 31 and the other one was 63? Had to do a little bit of a back and forth, but truly, these players at 63 are very, very good players. And I really think if I just took this crew versus that crew, I would take these guys. I would prefer these guys over the others.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're looking at a trend, the difference, I think, especially, and I haven't seen the 94 one, but I think if you're looking at a similar range, it's a lot more variety, right? You have an offensive lineman, you have a corner, you have a safety, you have a linebacker, you have a center, you have a running back, you have a receiver. That's 7 different positions, where you get a lot more variety. And the reason that I say that is when you looked at the last one, you might consider those as more premium positions, especially as you go along. Corner, that's a premium position in today's NFL. D-end, that's a premium position in today's NFL. And then obviously offensive line, offensive tackle specifically, that's a premium position in today's NFL. Whereas as you go later in the draft, a lot of teams tend to, for some reason, tend to choose more best player available. Just as, the needs start to fill up more and more, you get to go with a best player available. And that's where most teams tend to make some of their best selections, the Niners included. And so it's an intriguing trend for sure. And one you can clearly see on this page.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was encouraging to see. Very, very happy with this. Maybe the 49ers are going to get a steal at 63. Let's go to the 3rd round pick, 94. I'll let you take this one. What stands out to you here?
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple of cool players, a couple of maybe not so great players. Matt Corral, obviously the one that stands out as a guy who isn't with his team anymore. But Cam Sutton, I mean, regardless of what he's going through right now, good player, solid corner, starting level corner. Kappa, he's a starting level guard. He got a 4-year, $40 million contract. That's what you want out of a guard, who's in the 3rd round. Jamel Dean, starting level corner. DeGuara, not great. Cleveland, average level guard, average level offensive lineman. And then Michael Wilson, he had his flashes. So you definitely see a couple of players on this list that you can also be excited about. Maybe not the same level of the 63 guys, but starters who you can get in the 3rd round is the main thing that I can take away out of this.